One week after Nix moved in, Taeho sat in the university cafeteria with his friend Do-hyun. He pushed his food around his plate with a fork. "I don't understand him at all," Taeho said. "Yesterday, he walked into the bathroom while I was showering. He didn't even knock." Do-hyun laughed. "What did you do?" "I yelled at him to get out, of course." He seemed confused. He said on his planet, bathing is done in groups to save water. Do-hyun's eyes widened. "Really? That's weird." And he asked so many personal questions. About my family, about my body, about human relationships. "It's too much. He's just trying to learn about us," Do-hyun said. "Have you asked him questions too?" Taeho shook his head. "Not many. I don't want to be rude. Maybe that's the problem. Maybe he thinks you're not interested in his culture." Before Taeho could answer, his phone buzzed. It was a message from Professor Hae-nul, his anthropology teacher. "Class project announced today. Be prepared." Taeho sighed. "I have to go to class." Professor Hae-nul stood at the front of the classroom. On one side sat human students. On the other side sat Stellarist students. Even after a week, the two groups did not mix. "Today I am announcing a special project," Professor Hae-nul said. "Each human student will pair with a Stellarist student. Together, you will create a presentation about the cultural differences between our species." A groan went through the room. Professor Hae-nul smiled. "I have already chosen the pairs. Please look at the screen for your partner." Taeho saw his name next to Nix. Of course. Just his luck. After class, Nix approached him. The alien's skin was glowing bright blue today. "This is good fortune, yes," Nix said. "We are already roommates, so we can work on the project easily." "Yes, good fortune," Taeho said, not meaning it. "We should begin right away. I have many questions about human culture." Taeho nodded, trying to be polite. "Okay, we can talk in our room tonight." That evening, Taeho sat at his desk while Nix sat on his bed. The alien had a strange device that recorded their conversation. "Let us begin with privacy," Nix said. "This concept is very important to humans, but very confusing to Stellarists." Taeho shifted in his chair. "What's confusing about it? Why do humans need to be alone so much? Why do you wear clothes when it is warm? Why do you close doors? Why do you whisper secrets? These things make no sense to us." Taeho thought about it. "It's just how we are. We need personal space. We feel embarrassed if others see too much of us. It's about respect." Nix's head tentacles moved quickly. "Embarrassment. This emotion is very interesting. Stellarists do not have this feeling. Our bodies do not change through life like yours do. We have no need to hide them. You never feel embarrassed about anything. We feel shame if we harm others or fail at important tasks, but not about our bodies or personal information. All knowledge is shared freely among Stellarists." Taeho tried to imagine a life without privacy. It seemed terrible to him. "Now I have a question for you," Taeho said. "Why does your skin change color?" Nix seemed pleased by the question. "It shows our emotions and health. Blue means I am calm and happy. Red means excitement or anger. Green means I am thinking hard. Purple means I am tired." "So you can't hide your feelings?" Taeho asked. "Why would I want to hide them?" Nix seemed genuinely confused. Sometimes humans hide feelings to avoid hurting others or to keep control in difficult situations. Nix's skin flashed green. "Fascinating. So your privacy extends to your emotions as well as your bodies." They continued talking for hours. Taeho was surprised to find himself interested in Nix's answers. The alien world was so different from Earth. As they worked, Taeho realized something important. Learning about Nix's culture was helping him understand his own better. He had never thought much about why humans valued privacy. It was just normal to him. Maybe having an alien roommate wasn't so bad after all. At least their project would be interesting. But Taeho still wished Nix would learn to knock on doors. Taeho Kim stared at the official letter in his hands. His heart beat fast as he read it again. As part of Seoul National University's commitment to the Earth Stellaris Cultural Exchange Program, you have been selected to room with a Stellaris exchange student. Tae-ho sighed and put the letter down on his small desk. He looked around his neat dorm room. Everything was in its place. His books were lined up by size on the shelf. His clothes were folded perfectly in the drawers. His study schedule was posted on the wall. His life was organized and quiet. And now an alien was going to live with him. It had been only 2 years since the Stellaris ships appeared in Earth's skies. The world had been scared at first, but the aliens came in peace. They wanted to learn about humans, and they wanted humans to learn about them. Now the first group of Stellaris students was coming to Earth's universities. Tae-ho wasn't sure how to feel. He was studying biology, so meeting an alien was exciting from a science point of view, but he was shy and liked his space. Having any roommate would be hard. Having an alien roommate seemed impossible. A knock on the door made him jump. "Come in," Tae-ho called, standing up straight and smoothing his shirt. The door slid open. Professor Park Ji-won stood there with a smile. Next to her was a tall figure that made Tae-ho's mouth fall open. The Stellaris student had blue-gray skin that seemed to glow slightly. The alien was about 7 feet tall with a slim body. Its face had 2 large, purple eyes with no whites, just deep color all the way through. Where a human would have hair, this being had what looked like soft, short tentacles that moved slightly as if in a breeze. The alien wore what seemed to be a simple white uniform, with strange symbols on the chest. "Tae-ho Kim, I'd like you to meet Nix," Professor Park said. "Nix is one of our first Stellaris exchange students, and will be your roommate this year." The alien stepped forward. Its skin changed color slightly, becoming more blue than gray. "Hello, Tae-ho Kim. I am pleased to meet you." The voice was soft and musical, coming from a small mouth with no lips. Tae-ho bowed slightly, remembering his manners. "Hello, Nix. Welcome to Earth and to our university." Professor Park smiled. "I'll leave you two to get to know each other. Nix has basic items, but please help with anything else needed. The orientation meeting is tomorrow at 9 a.m. in the main hall." After she left, Tae-ho and Nix stood looking at each other in awkward silence. "You may ask questions," Nix said finally. "Humans are always curious. I do not mind." Tae-ho tried to think of something smart to ask. "Do you like Earth so far?" The tentacles on Nix's head waved faster. "It is very wet compared to my home. And heavy. Your gravity is stronger than what I am used to. Is that uncomfortable for you?" "I have had treatments to help my body adjust. But yes, at the end of each day, I feel tired." "Is that the right word?" Tae-ho nodded. "That's the right word." Nix walked to the empty bed on the other side of the room. From a small bag, the alien pulled out strange devices and placed them on the desk. "What are those?" Tae-ho asked. "This one measures air quality. This one plays sounds from my home world to help me sleep. This one..." Nix held up a cube that glowed green. "This one is a communication device to speak with my family." Nix touched one of the devices, and it made a loud, high-pitched noise. Tae-ho covered his ears. "I apologize," Nix said, quickly turning it off. "I did not realize it would be painful to human hearing." Tae-ho lowered his hand slowly. "It's okay. We'll just need to figure things out as we go." Nix's skin flashed with small points of light, like stars. "Yes, that is why I am here. To learn. To figure things out." The alien looked directly at Tae-ho with those purple eyes. "I hope we can be friends, Tae-ho Kim." Tae-ho wasn't sure about that, but he nodded politely anyway. This was going to be a very interesting year. Tae-ho had never been so tired in his life. Finals week was hitting him hard. He had just finished 3 exams in one day, and his brain felt like mush. All he wanted was a hot shower and sleep. He returned to his dorm room at 9 in the evening. The room was empty. Nix was probably at the library with the other Stellaris students. They didn't seem to need as much sleep as humans. Perfect, Taiho muttered. He could have some peace and quiet. He grabbed his towel and headed to the bathroom. The hot water felt amazing on his tired muscles. For the first time that day, Taiho relaxed. He stayed under the water for a long time, letting the steam fill the bathroom. Meanwhile, Nix was walking back to the dorm. The alien had been studying in the science building with 2 other Stellaris. They had been working on a special project for Professor Jiwon. As Nix reached the dorm building, he realized he had forgotten his access key. Without it, he couldn't open the main door. His skin flashed red with frustration. "Computer," Nix said to the small device on his wrist. "I need emergency access to dorm building C." The computer voice responded, identifying Stellaris student Nix. Emergency access granted. The main door clicked open. This was a feature for exchange students who were still adjusting to Earth customs. Nix walked through the hallway to his room. In the bathroom, Taiho finally turned off the water. He felt much better now. He stepped out of the shower and dried himself with his towel. Usually, he would wrap the towel around his waist before going back into the main room. But since Nix was gone, he didn't bother. Taiho opened the bathroom door and walked into the room completely naked. At that exact moment, Nix opened the main door and stepped inside. Time seemed to freeze. Taiho stood there, his body fully exposed. Nix stood by the door, completely still. Taiho's face turned bright red. "Ge out," he shouted, trying to cover himself with his hands. But Nix didn't move. The alien skin was doing something Taiho had never seen before. Instead of a solid color, it was rippling with waves of light. Blue, gold, and white patterns moved across Nix's body like northern lights. "I said get out," Taiho yelled again, backing up toward the bathroom. Nix finally spoke, but his voice sounded strange. You are." Taiho grabbed his towel from the bathroom door and wrapped it around his waist. His face was burning with embarrassment. "Haven't you learned about knocking yet?" Taiho demanded. But Nix wasn't listening. The alien's purple eyes were wide, and the tentacles on his head were completely still. His skin continued to flash with those strange lights. "What's wrong with you?" Taiho asked, his anger turning to confusion. "Your body," Nix whispered. "It cannot be." Taiho frowned. "What about my body?" "The pattern, the shape, the structure." Nix stepped forward, his hand reaching out but not touching Taiho. "You are like them, like the architects." "The what? What are you talking about?" Taiho clutched his towel tighter. "The architects, the ancient ones, the beings from our oldest stories." Nix's voice was filled with awe. "We thought they were just myths. But your form is exactly as the legends describe." Taiho shook his head, completely lost. "I don't understand. In our histories, there are tales of a species that came before us. Beings who could create life, who traveled between stars before we had even evolved. We call them the architects." Nix's skin finally settled into a deep gold color. No Stellaris has ever seen one, but their description has been passed down for thousands of years. "And you think humans look like these architects?" Taiho asked. "Not just look like them. You are them." Nix's voice was firm now. "I must contact the Stellaris Science Council immediately." Before Taiho could stop him, Nix pulled out his communication device. The small green cube glowed brightly as Nix spoke rapidly in his native language. Taiho stood there, still wet from his shower, wondering how his normal life had suddenly become so complicated, all because he forgot to wear a towel. Taiho and Nix climbed the steep slope of the volcano. The air grew colder as they moved higher. Rocks slid under their feet, making the climb dangerous. Above them, Void Collective ships fired energy beams at the mountain, but most hit lower areas where Professor Jiwon and the others were creating distractions. We're almost there, Taiho said, breathing hard. The blue symbols on his skin glowed brighter in the darkening sky. Nix's skin shifted between colors as he climbed. The ships are starting to notice us. We need to hurry. They reached the top of the volcano after 30 minutes of hard climbing. The crater stretched before them, steam rising from cracks in the rock. From this height, they could see for miles in every direction. Towns and villages dotted the landscape below. Taiho held up his hand with the broadcaster attached to it. This should work now. I just need to. A beam of energy hit the ground near them, sending rocks flying. Taiho fell to his knees. Nix helped him up quickly. They've spotted us, Nix said, his skin turning gray with fear. More beams hit around them. The ships were moving closer, focusing their attacks on the volcano top. I need to activate the broadcaster now, Taiho said, but I need a few minutes of concentration. Can you buy me some time? Nix looked at the ships, then back at Taiho. His skin settled into a calm blue color. Yes, I can help. To Taiho's surprise, Nix began to glow brightly. The Stellaris held his arms up toward the ships, and light poured from his body in all directions. It formed a dome of energy around them, blocking the attack beams. How are you doing this? Taiho asked in amazement. All Stellaris can create light shields, Nix explained, his voice strained. It's normally just for ceremony, but it might hold long enough for you to work. Taiho nodded gratefully. He closed his eyes and focused on the broadcaster. The symbols on his skin connected to the device, and energy began to flow between them. In his mind, Taiho could see the signal building. It would spread out from him like ripples in water, activating the dormant architect DNA in every human it touched. The ships intensified their attack. Nix groaned as the energy dome weakened. Hurry, Taiho, he gasped. I can't hold much longer. Taiho focused harder. He thought of Earth, of all the humans who needed protection. He thought of the strange journey that had led him here, all because Nix had accidentally seen him naked that day in their dorm room. The broadcaster reached full power. Taiho opened his eyes. It's ready, he said. Nix, drop the shield on my mark. Nix nodded, his body trembling with effort. Now, Taiho shouted. The light dome disappeared. At the same instant, Taiho thrust his hand toward the sky. A pulse of blue light exploded from the broadcaster, spreading outward in all directions. It passed through the Void Collective ships without stopping, continuing toward the horizon and beyond. In towns below, people stopped and looked up as the light washed over them. Blue symbols appeared briefly on their skin, then faded. They felt a strange warmth, a new strength flowing through them. When they touched others, the effect spread person to person. The signal raced across Iceland, then Europe, then worldwide. Everywhere, humans felt the awakening of their architect heritage. Above, the Void Collective ships tried to continue their attack. But now, a blue shield of energy was forming around Earth. It grew stronger with each person who awakened. The ship's beams couldn't penetrate it. On the volcano top, Taiho smiled as he felt millions of humans connecting to the shield, adding their power to it. It's working, he said. Earth is protected now. Nix stood beside him, watching as the Void Collective ships backed away from the shield. You did it, Taiho, Nix said, his skin glowing with happiness. You saved everyone. Taiho shook his head. Not just me. All humans together did this. And you helped make it happen. They sat down on the rocky ground, tired but relieved. The blue symbols on Taiho's skin slowly faded, but he could still feel the connection to other humans around the world. What happens now? Nix asked. We build a new future, Taiho said. Humans, Stellaris working together, learning from each other. Nix's skin turned a soft pink color. I am glad I walked into your room that day. Taiho laughed. Me too, though I'll still knock before entering bathrooms. As the sun rose over Earth, the Void Collective ships retreated into deep space, They had failed to destroy the architect's children. Humans had awakened to their true heritage, and they would never be vulnerable again. Tai-Ho and Nix began the long walk down the mountain, toward a new chapter in the history of their peoples. The military plane flew low over the icy mountains of Iceland. Tai-Ho looked out the small window at the strange landscape below. Black volcanic rock, mixed with white snow and bright blue ice. Steam rose from hot springs scattered across the land. "It's beautiful," Tai-Ho said. Nix nodded, his skin glowing a soft blue. "It reminds me of stories about the architect's homeworld." Professor Jaewon sat across from them, studying a tablet. According to the coordinates we decoded, the facility should be near a volcano called HFY. The plane landed at a small airport. 3 jeeps were waiting for them. The team loaded their equipment and began the drive toward the mountain. Tai-Ho rode with Nix, Professor Jaewon, and a stellar scientist named Zora. The other jeeps carried more scientists and security officers. "What exactly are we looking for?" Tai-Ho asked as the jeep bounced over the rough road. "The tablet mentioned a door that only the children can open," Professor Jaewon said. "We think it means a door that responds to architect DNA." "My DNA," Tai-Ho said quietly. Nix touched his arm. "Yes, you are the key, Tai-Ho." The jeep stopped at the base of the mountain. A wall of black rock rose before them, streaked with ice. Steam hissed from cracks in the ground. "The door should be somewhere in this area," Professor Jaewon said, checking her equipment. "Spread out and look for anything unusual." They searched for hours. The sun began to set, making the ice glow orange. Tai-Ho's feet were cold, and his back hurt from bending to examine the rocks. "This is hopeless," he said to Nix. "We'll never find." He stopped speaking as his hand touched a smooth spot on the rock wall. It was different from the rough rocks around it, and it was warm. "I found something," Tai-Ho called. Everyone gathered around. The smooth area was about the size of a door, but looked just like the surrounding rock except for its texture. "It's warm," Tai-Ho said, "and smooth, like glass." Professor Jaewon scanned it with a device. "It's not rock. It's some kind of metal with a rock coating." Mero's skin flashed with excitement. "This could be it." Tai-Ho, "Put your whole hand on it." Tai-Ho placed his palm against the warm surface. For a moment, nothing happened. Then lines of light began to spread from his hand, flowing through the rock like veins. The lights formed symbols similar to those on the ancient tablet. The rock surface softened and shifted, opening to reveal a dark tunnel leading into the mountain. "It worked," Professor Jaewon said. "Your DNA activated it." Tai-Ho stared at his hand in wonder. "I really am part architect." They turned on their flashlights and entered the tunnel. It sloped down into the earth, the walls smooth and covered with the same strange symbols. After walking for about 10 minutes, the tunnel opened into a large round room. As they entered, lights came on automatically. The room was filled with strange devices and glass containers. At the center stood a pedestal with what looked like a metal glove. "Incredible," Mero whispered. "Architect technology, preserved for thousands of years." Zora was examining the wall symbols. "According to this is a defense outpost. It was created to protect Earth if the Void Collective ever found it." Nix pointed to the pedestal. "What is that?" Professor Jaewon approached it carefully. "The text calls it a bond weaver. It seems to be a device that can connect to architect DNA." She looked at Tai-Ho. "I think you need to use it." Tai-Ho stepped forward slowly. The metal glove seemed to shimmer as he got closer. "What will it do to me?" he asked. "The text says it will awaken what sleeps," Zora said, "whatever that means." Tai-Ho took a deep breath. "If it helps protect Earth, I'll try it." He reached out and slipped his right hand into the metal glove. It fit perfectly, as if made for him. At first, nothing happened. Then pain shot up his arm. Tai-Ho cried out. The glove tightened around his hand, and symbols like those on the walls began to appear on his skin, glowing with blue light. Memories that weren't his own filled his mind. He saw strange worlds, incredible cities, and beings that looked almost human but glowed with inner light. The architects, he gasped. I can see them. The glove released his hand, but the glowing symbols remained on his skin. Taiho felt different somehow. Stronger. His mind was clearer than it had ever been. Nick stared at him, his skin pulsing with amazement. Taiho, are you okay? Taiho looked at his friends with new eyes. I know how to stop the Void Collective, he said. I know what we need to do. Taiho stood in the center of the architect facility, the blue symbols still glowing on his skin. Everyone watched him with wide eyes. What did you see? Professor Jaiwan asked. What do you know now? The architects didn't just visit Earth, Taiho said. His voice sounded different, stronger. They made this planet their home after the war with the Void Collective. They mixed with early humans, becoming part of us. That explains the DNA connection, Mero said. Taiho nodded. They knew the Void Collective might find Earth someday, so they built defenses into human DNA. Every human has a small piece of architect power inside them. It just needs to be awakened. He walked to a large circular platform in the corner of the room. As he stepped onto it, the platform lit up with the same blue symbols that marked his skin. This is a broadcasting station, Taiho explained. It can send a signal that will activate the dormant architect DNA in humans worldwide. Together, humans can create a shield around Earth that the Void Collective cannot break. How do you know all this? Nix asked, his skin flashing with amazement. The glove contained memories, Taiho said. The last architect leader stored his knowledge here, waiting for someone like me to find it. Professor Jaiwan looked concerned. Will this signal hurt humans? No, Taiho assured her. It will just wake up abilities that are already there. Most people will only feel a slight warmth, maybe see some symbols like mine for a short time. Zara studied the platform. How do we activate it? I need to stand in the center and focus, Taiho said. The signal will go out from me, carried by the Earth's magnetic field. Suddenly, the ground shook. Dust fell from the ceiling. What was that? Professor Jaiwan asked. One of the security officers ran in from the tunnel. The Void Collective ships are moving. They're positioning themselves around the planet. Our time is up. Mero's skin turned pale gray. They must have detected the architect technology activating. They're preparing to attack. I need to send the signal now, Taiho said urgently. He moved to the center of the platform and closed his eyes. The blue symbols on his skin grew brighter. Energy began to flow from his body, filling the circular platform with light. It's working, Zara said. The broadcast system is powering up. But before the signal could go out, another violent shake rocked the facility. Part of the ceiling collapsed, blocking the tunnel entrance. They're bombing the area, the security officer shouted. They must know exactly where we are. The platform's lights flickered. Taiho opened his eyes, looking worried. The system is damaged, he said. I can't send a strong enough signal from here. Nix rushed to his side. What can we do? Taiho thought for a moment. There's one more option, but it's dangerous. He pointed to a small device on the wall. That's a personal broadcaster. It can send the same signal, but only at close range. I would need to get to a high point, somewhere the signal could reach as many people as possible. The top of the volcano, Professor Jaiwan suggested. From there, you could reach most of Iceland at least. And if enough people receive the signal, they can pass it on to others by touch, Taiho said. Like a chain reaction. Nex's skin glowed with determination. Then we need to get you to the top of the mountain. Another explosion shook the facility, even stronger than before. More debris fell from the ceiling. We need to leave now, Mero shouted. Taiho grabbed the personal broadcaster from the wall. It attached to his hand, merging with the glowing symbols on his skin. They found a second tunnel leading out of the facility, emerging on the slope of the volcano. The sky above was filled with the dark shapes of void collective ships. Beams of energy shot down, hitting the mountain and the surrounding area. "We have to reach the top," Taiho said, looking up at the peak of Hekla. "It's our only chance." Nick stood beside him. "I'm coming with you." Professor Jiwon nodded. "We'll create a distraction to draw their fire away from you." Taiho looked at his friends, feeling a mix of fear and hope. "Thank you," he said simply. Then he and Nix began to climb up the volcano, racing against time to save Earth. 3 days passed. Taiho tried to focus on his studies, but it was hard. Every time he saw a Stellarist student on campus, they would stare at him with those big purple eyes. Word had spread through their community. "This is getting weird," Taiho told Do-hyun at lunch. "They look at me like I'm some kind of god." Do-hyun laughed. "Maybe you are. Imagine. Taeho Kim, the alien god." "It's not funny," Taiho said. "I just want normal life back." "I don't think that's possible anymore," Do-hyun said, suddenly serious. "Look." He pointed to the cafeteria entrance. Professor Jiwon was walking toward them, followed by Nix and Science Officer Mero. "Taiho Kim," Professor Jiwon said, "we need you to come with us. It's important." Taiho looked at Do-hyun, who nodded encouragingly. "Go, I want to hear everything later." The science building's basement lab was filled with strange equipment. Stellarists and human scientists moved around quickly, checking screens and talking in low voices. In the center of the room was a large table with what looked like an ancient stone tablet. Professor Jiwon led Taiho to it. "This artifact was found on the Stellarist homeworld 50 years ago," she explained. Scientists couldn't read most of the symbols, but they could tell it contained DNA sequences. Mero stepped forward. "We compared your DNA to the sequences on this tablet." His skin was glowing bright gold with excitement. "They match. Not completely, but enough to prove a connection." Taiho stared at the tablet. "So it's true. Humans are related to the architects." "Yes," said Professor Jiwon. "The evidence is clear. The architects visited Earth thousands of years ago. They may have guided human evolution, or even mixed their DNA with early humans." Nix touched Taiho's arm gently. "This changes everything, Taiho. Our peoples are not strangers meeting for the first time. We are reuniting after thousands of years apart." Taiho felt dizzy. It was too much to take in. An older human scientist approached them. "The most interesting part is this," she said, pointing to a section of the tablet. "These symbols describe the architect's departure. They say the architects had to hide their children, which must mean humans, from something called the Void Collective." "Who are they?" Taiho asked. Mero's skin darkened. "In our oldest stories, the Void Collective were enemies of the architects. They were jealous of the architects' power to create life. The tablet says the architects gave their children, humans, special traits to hide them," the scientist continued. "They made humans feel shame about their bodies, so they would cover themselves and not be recognized as architect descendants." Taiho's eyes widened. "That's why we wear clothes. Because ancient aliens programmed us to hide." Professor Jiwon nodded. "It's a theory, but it would explain the universal human trait of bodily privacy, which Stellarists don't share." "There's more," Mero said. "We believe certain humans have stronger architect DNA than others." "Taiho, your sample shows a very strong connection." "What does that mean for me?" Taiho asked, feeling nervous. Before anyone could answer, alarms started blaring. Red lights flashed throughout the lab. "What's happening?" Professor Jiwon shouted over the noise. A human security officer ran into the room. "Professor, we're getting strange readings from orbit. Several large objects just appeared near the moon." Everyone rushed for the large screen on the wall. It showed grainy images of dark, sharp-edged ships. Mero's skin turned pale gray. "No," he whispered. "It cannot be." "What?" Tahoe asked. "What are those ships?" Nix grabbed Tahoe's hand. His skin was pulsing with fear. "The Void Collective. They found us." Professor Jaiwan looked at Tahoe with serious eyes. "They must have detected our research somehow. If the stories are true, they've come for the architect's children." "They've come for humans," Nix said. "They've come for you, Tahoe." The room fell silent except for the blaring alarms. Tahoe stared at the screen, at the dark ships approaching Earth, all because he had been seen naked by his alien roommate. History had a strange sense of humor. Within hours, the whole world knew about the Void Collective ships. They hung in the sky like dark knives, visible even during the day. News channels showed nothing else. People filled the streets, some praying, some protesting, many just watching the sky with scared eyes. Tahoe, Nix, Professor Jaiwan, and Mero were taken to a secure government building in Seoul. They sat in a large meeting room with military officers, scientists, and government officials from around the world. "They've sent a message," said General Park, a stern woman in a crisp uniform. She pressed a button, and a screen lit up. A strange face appeared. It was gray with no nose and 6 small black eyes arranged in a circle. When it spoke, its voice sounded like metal scraping on stone. "People of Earth, we are the Void Collective. We know what you are hiding. We can sense the architect DNA. Give us all research about this DNA and surrender any humans with pure architect lineage. You have 48 hours to comply, or we will take what we need by force." The room was silent after the message ended. Then everyone started talking at once. "We can't give them anything. What do they mean by force? How do they know about the research?" General Park raised her hand, and everyone became quiet. "We need to understand what we're dealing with. Science Officer Mero, what can you tell us about the Void Collective?" Mero's skin was a dull gray. "They are very old and very advanced. In our histories, they fought the architects because they were jealous. The architects could create life, but the Void Collective could only destroy." "What do they want with humans?" asked a scientist. "If humans carry architect DNA, the Void Collective will want to study it," Mero said, "or destroy it to finish what they started thousands of years ago." "Study it how?" Tahoe asked, his voice shaking a little. Nix put a hand on Tahoe's shoulder. "Not in a good way, Tahoe. They would take humans apart to see how they work." A cold feeling spread through Tahoe's body. "And I have the strongest architect DNA you found." Professor Jaiwan nodded. "We've tested more humans since your sample. Your DNA shows a 78% match with the architect sequences. Most humans show only 30 to 40%. So I'm the one they really want," Tahoe said. General Park looked at him with serious eyes. "It seems that way, which means we need to keep you safe." A scientist raised his hand. "What if we just explain that humans evolved naturally on Earth? That we aren't architect creations?" Mero shook his head. "The evidence says otherwise. And the Void Collective will not believe such claims anyway. They can sense the DNA patterns." "Then we fight," said General Park. "Earth will not surrender its people." Professor Jaiwan stood up. "Fighting may not be our best option. The Stellaris reports say the Void Collective's technology is far beyond ours." "What choice do we have?" asked General Park. Nix suddenly spoke up, his skin flashing with colors. "There might be another way. If the architects hid humans here, they may have left defenses too." Everyone turned to look at him. "The tablet mentions special facilities on Earth," Nix continued. "Places where architect technology was stored in case the Void Collective ever found humans." "Do we know where these facilities are?" asked General Park. Mero pointed to some symbols on his tablet. "The text mentions mountains that pierce the clouds and a land of fire and ice." Mountains, fire and ice. Professor Jaiwan thought for a moment. "Iceland. It has tall mountains, and both volcanoes and glaciers. We need to go there, Nix said. And we need to take Taiho. If the facilities exist, they might respond to his DNA. General Park nodded. I'll arrange transportation immediately. Professor Jaiwan, you and a small team will go with them. As people rushed around making plans, Taiho sat quietly. Just days ago, his biggest worry was passing his biology exam. Now the fate of Earth might depend on him. Nix sat beside him. Are you okay? No, Taiho said honestly. I'm scared. Me too, Nix admitted, his skin showing swirls of blue and gray. But at least we're scared together. Taiho looked up at the screen showing the dark ships. Together, he repeated. It wasn't much comfort, but it was something. The next morning, Taiho woke up to find 3 Stellarists standing in his room. Nix was there, along with an older Stellarist with darker skin, and another who wore what looked like a uniform. Taiho sat up quickly, pulling his blanket to his chin. What's going on? Nix stepped forward. Taiho, these are important people from my world. This is Elder Lumi, a teacher of ancient history. He pointed to the older Stellarist. And this is Science Officer Marrow. Elder Lumi's skin glowed a soft green. We apologize for coming without warning, Taiho Kim. But what Nix has told us is too important to wait. Taiho looked at Nix with angry eyes. You told them about seeing me naked. Nix's skin turned slightly pink. I had to. It is a matter of great scientific importance. My privacy is scientifically important. Taiho couldn't believe what was happening. Science Officer Marrow stepped forward. Young human, you do not understand. For thousands of years, our people have told stories about the architects, a species that came before us. They were said to have created life on many worlds, including our own. But we thought they were just myths. Elder Lumi nodded. The ancient texts describe the architects in detail. 2 arms, 2 legs, skin without light, hair on the head, 5 fingers on each hand, internal reproductive organs. Taiho felt his face getting hot. Those are just basic descriptions of humans. Exactly, said Marrow, his skin flashing with excitement. Humans match the descriptions perfectly. This cannot be a coincidence. Taiho shook his head. But why would seeing me, without clothes, matter so much? Nix spoke softly, because the text specifically mentioned certain anatomical details that would not be visible when clothed. Details that I saw yesterday. Oh, Taiho's face turned even redder. Elder Lumi's voice was gentle. The placement of your reproductive organs, the lack of protective outer shells, the symmetry of your muscle structure, all these match our ancient descriptions. Taiho tried to process this information. So you think humans are these architects from your stories? Marrow nodded. Or their descendants. The timeline would match. The architects disappeared from our records about 50,000 Earth years ago. That is when humans were starting to develop civilization. Taiho laughed nervously. This is crazy. Humans evolved on Earth. We have fossils, DNA evidence, everything to prove it. Yes, said Elder Lumi. But perhaps the architects came to Earth and mixed with early humans, or they guided human evolution somehow. Nix sat on the edge of Taiho's bed. We need to know more. Would you allow us to take a small DNA sample? Just a swab from your mouth. Taiho hesitated. This whole situation was strange, but he was curious too. Fine, but just a swab. Science Officer Marrow took out a small device and gently touched it to the inside of Taiho's cheek. It glowed briefly, then beeped. Sample collected, Marrow said. We will analyze this and compare it to architect DNA markers found in ancient artifacts. How long will that take? Taiho asked. A few days, Marrow replied. Until then, please keep this matter private. If humans truly are connected to the architects, it would change everything we know about our species' histories. After the Stellaris officials left, Taiho stared at Nix. You could have warned me. I am sorry, Nick said. His skin was a soft blue now. But try to understand. For my people, this is like finding out that characters from your religious texts are real. Tai-Ho sighed. I guess I understand. But next time, warn me before you bring aliens into our room while I'm sleeping. Nix's skin brightened. So there will be a next time. You are not too angry with me. Despite everything, Tai-Ho smiled. No, I'm not too angry. This is weird, but also kind of amazing. If humans really are connected to your architects, then our meeting was not by chance. Nick said, perhaps it was always meant to be. Tai-Ho wasn't sure about that, but he did know one thing. His life would never be normal again.